Okay, so I have started it already. All right, okay. So the color eye control in-depth training, actually, we would like to share the application of what we call understanding or knowledge to our dealer, so you can have a more comprehensive understanding on the software, different features and functions. And eventually, this allow the dealers to customize software according to customers' requirement. Because as you can see, the color eye control can have a many different approach on how you will access some of those functions. So there is no like a definite 1, 2, 3, 4 step. You can start with step number 2, you can start with step number 3, and you will always get the final answer is always the same. So it's more like on how you understand the workflow or how those functionality works. That is the most important aspect of the software. And then hopefully, we would like to certify also our dealer as soon as you have completed the course. So at least when you have this, when some of your customer asking you, are you qualified to train us on color eye control? So definitely that will give you some more confidence, or customer will have will understand that you as our partner are have that the same capability in providing the training to our customers. And we try to have this training will be for the month of August until September, and we try to do it every Tuesday and Wednesday. But tomorrow we don't have the session. Actually, it should be Tuesday and Friday, but then we need to make some adjustments. So the next session will be on next Tuesday. Okay, so this will be the topics. And if you notice, it will try to be very specific. That's why we call it in-depth. So we start first with the installation, EJAB settings and EJAB templates. And then on the part 2 training is about database remote output. And then we go to some of the color analysis. So we start with color strength, because color strength has a lot of different function in the software. And sometimes some of the customers are getting confused when to use and how to use all those different features in terms of specific requirement in color data. And then we go to the colorant database evaluation, and we have the software is capable of doing the textile, paint, and plastic database management, or for formulation and correction workflow. And then just to some of you may are not aware on how to use the tapering program, but the tapering program is something unique to Color Eye Match and maybe or Color IQC. And probably if you see more in action on how we use the software, you can find some opportunity not only in textile, but probably similar application to textile, because tapering is very popular in denim application. It's sort of sorting color according to family of hue, according to family of chroma. So that will be discussed in detail if we can show you on how to use the tapering program in the software. And then we would like to take this opportunity also to announce, because now if you notice, the software platform is going into a subscription mode. This subscription mode has already started with version 10.5, and we call it the SaaS model, so software as a service licensing model. So this is a yearly subscription, and customer can renew the software on a yearly basis. And the licensing program will be different because they will get what we call a product key instead of the AUI number, and they can activate provided that the software during the installation has the internet access. But just in case there is no internet access to the software, there is another program. We call it the Turbo Activate program. And this will generate a license file, which our team in the US will be licensing. So the licensing now will be coming from the US. And so we have to send this request. So it might take 1 day if you don't have internet connection. But if you have internet connection after the installation, you instantly activate the software. So and then the good thing about this subscription model, so sometimes computer have some issues, some problems, so they cannot run the program because of the computer. The good thing about this licensing, you can deactivate the license up to 5 times. But beyond that, then you have to inform us and send the request to our team. I think everyone knows our email address. So this goes to every member of the team, the sseap.techsupport@xrite.com. So as soon as we get this email, we try to understand the issue and what's the issue, why you cannot run the software, and then we need to request for the license reset. So the permanent license is still available, and this is still through AUI number, where you have to continue registering the software so you can have a permanent license. Now, before I proceed, is there any questions specific on this new licensing model? Okay. All right. So I think that's very clear. Anyway, this licensing model, we have some document. I can share to you the documentation on how to license, to guide the dealer and to guide our customer on the licensing procedure. Okay, so now we will start with the software. We will launch the software. I'm sure most of you have already installed the software. So I will go directly now to the eJob settings and eJob template. So the training will be like showing to you how we set up the software, to help you understand all those eJob settings and all those eJob templates. So the best way here is to really to show you how do we really use the software, so you can understand all those terminology or all those default setting, all those function and features in the software. Just a little bit of guidelines. So because iMatch would require an administrator level of access, so for you to have a very what we call a successful installation, and it has to be running under the administrator mode. And just make sure, sometimes you just click, but what we recommend is to do the right click and run as administrator, so the software will really show the registration code and the licensing will be faster, and software will run, will you have a smoother way of installing the software. So one thing that I think some of you are not aware, because most of you have the what we call the highest level of the AUI number, you can install a demo version of the software in your computer, and you have what we call a demo version. So there is a way to configure the software. So if you remember, we had the iMatch Professional, we had the iMatch Basic, we also have the IQC Basic, we have IQC Professional. So sometimes it's very difficult to understand what are the difference, and sometimes you want to see how does it look like if you have IQC Basic, IQC Professional, or IQC iMatch Basic. So it's good that I can show you on how to configure in a specific what we call model of the program. And this program will allow you to switch to different application mode. And as I said earlier, all of you who have ability to do the demo, you must have this license demo code. I'm sorry, this should be 1, not 0. So I'll change this. So you should have an AUI number that is 21491 0000000 and with 80. So that is the correct program. So let me go to this. I will stop this PowerPoint and I'll go to the iConfigure. So the easiest way is to just type in iConfigure. If you have Windows 10, very easy. You can just write the program iConfigure and you will see this iConfigure in the software. So you just open the software, and when you open it, you will see this program called iConfigure Configuration Program. So you can see here there are 3 main levels. So we have the Color IQC, iMatch Textile, and Color iMatch for paint and plastic. And there is a desktop. Later on, I'll show you what is a desktop. And then we have a dispenser mostly applicable in a paint application where they have to dispense the colorant. So there is a dispenser in the market, like for example, the retail paint market. They will use a specific dispenser, and we can output those recipe or those colorant recipe to the dispenser. That's why we have this dispenser configuration. Now, I don't see here color iMatch. I don't see here color iMatch basic. I don't see here the color iMatch professional. So how do you access and set the software in color iMatch basic or color iMatch professional? So you just do a right click, so double right click here, and you will see there is what we call Demo IQC Basic, Demo IQC, Demo iMatch Basic. So these are the different model, or what we call different level of the Color iControl program. So for example, I want to run the program in an IQC basic mode. So how can I set it up? It's very simple. All you have to do is just change this into true and then write to registry. So as soon as you write to registry, even though you can see here IQC, this is IQC, iMatch Textile, or iMatch Plastic, that is my setup today. But if I go, since I set a true on the IQC basics, so as soon as you open the program, let me minimize this PowerPoint presentation. So you launch the, it shows you the licensing status of your computer. And then what you will see here, the software has already changed to an IQC basic. So this becomes what we call your, because your AUI numbers ends with 80, that's allow you to configure the software in a different mode. So if I want to switch back and to iConfigure, I just cancel this and then go back to iConfigure. Okay, run the iConfigure and then do the right double click here. And then I will say this is false. So I will change the status again to false. Write to registry, click OK. And then when I open the color iMatch, it goes into a full version of iMatch industrial professional. So you can see here it's very easy to switch to different mode of application. So let's say if you're planning, there is a budget constraint on the customer and they want to see the demo of IQC basically, then that's the way you can configure the program. So the functionality will some of the feature will be disabled if you switch to a certain mode of the application. So that's how you switch to different level of the caller eye control. So we call it the eye configure. Now, most of you, when you do install the program, most of you are already familiar on how does it look like. Okay, for version 10, we have a new interface. Okay, it looks different, and normally it will look like this. So me as an application person, okay, I normally would like to have some settings. Some of you may not touch some of the settings because most of you are not very familiar. So normally I want to share to you how normally I will do if I want to do some customization to the customer, and I understand their job workflow, then I will customize the software according to their workflow. So this is how we did. This is normally what I do. So as soon as we launch the software, as soon as you have installed the software, I will always start with open without an eJob. Okay. So now you don't see any eJob on the software. So the next thing I will do is I go to what we call a setting. So you can see in the setting, so when I do the icon figure, I set it as an Paint application, and I'm using the Paint database. So there are so many desktop here, and this will depend on the application. So if you are doing a demo, so we have a demo data that will represent the demo for the paint. We have a demo data for the plastic application. We have a demo data for textile, and also the program is capable of doing some print for the packaging, for the print application. So we call it the demo packaging. So you can choose this this different desktop. So depending on your customer. So if you will notice, when you change this desktop, it will also change some of the functionality of the software. So let's say, for example, when I choose demo paint, you will see this default folder setting, and you will see what are these data. So normally these are the data where we have we have customized according to the requirements. So since this is a demo paint, so we have a paint database, then we have a demo 2 system, a demo folder, we have this local setting. So if you notice, there is a magnifying glass. So most of this program, or most of this folder, can be reassigned, okay, according to your customer. So I'll show you one thing, the one way that you can do this reassigning is you can start your own desktop. Okay. So let's say I want to work with certain customers, and I want to create a folder for this customer. So let's say I name the customer as customer 1. Okay. So I have created a desktop for the customer. So do I want to use the setting for the paint? If the customer is similar to paint, you can use this paint setting. Or if you want, we can start what we call no default setting first, okay? And then you can change the folder here. So you don't want to use the demo. For me, I don't want to use the demo because that is a demo folder, but I want to customize so the customer can save all those data in their own folder. So you just go in here, and then you can see the software will go to Color Eye Control. The folder here says Color Eye Control Demo 2, and you see there is a lot of the folder inside the Color Eye Control folder. So if I want to save in also under Color Eye Control, actually you can save it in any folder. But then I would like to create a new folder. So I will create a new folder here, and I will name it also as customer. So as soon as I have changed it to customer, then definitely there will be no MDB file because we have not created any MDB file for this customer desktop. So you can change, you can remove that, and then we can again reassign the folder also under customer. So it's very easy to reassign. Do not change the local setting. This is the two things I would not change. So I'll make it as a default, even though I can change the system shared setting, I will not touch it also. So I go to the templates, so I can customize this under this folder. So you can see here, you can change the folder where you want the customer to use or save the data when they do some of the e-job. Okay. So now I have changed the folder, and this folder will appear like this. So I have a customer folder, and later on you will see on how to save, how the folder will, how will I save the data, and it will be saved automatically to this folder. So let's do some testing. So we are going back and forth to test the process, okay? The way we change. So at least you can visualize what will happen when you change the folder. So when I say, okay, I'm happy for this moment. So let's test when you change the folder. And then let's pretend we want to save the data. So let's say I want to save, okay? Just to show you. So you can see here, when I click save, it goes directly to this folder. So that's how desktop will work. So desktop is one way to customize where you want the data to be saved according to your customer. Because if you notice color iControl, there are so many folders here. And sometimes the customer would like to use their own folder, or at least for you, it's easy. It's easy when you do some troubleshooting. So sometimes if I had to do a troubleshooting and I'm not available to do a remote, I can ask them, can you give me your desktop folder so I can get all the data that they have, and I can create a folder also on my laptop, and then I can see all the data that they have. So that's one way of what we call customizing a desktop. So I will close this, I will not save, and then I will close again the program. Okay. So we go back to the settings. So you can see here, everything is now defaulted to the customer folder. And another thing that you see here, there is what we call the font size. So one of the good advancement on the version 10, you have a different font size. So depending on the monitor, okay, monitor display size, if they have big monitor, of course you can increase the font size. Or if the customer is complaining about the font size, you can also change here. So let's do some changes. And then we click OK. And then later on, when you open the file, you see here, there is some changes also on the font size on the display of the program. So I'm going to close again so we can explore the other settings. So another setting here that I find it very useful also, if I go before that, okay, so one thing you will notice here also, there is an Illuminant table 6 and Illuminant table 5. There is a difference between these two tables. The latest version for the calculation of color is using Illuminant table 6. Now, if you are doing a conversion, so let's say you convert a data from a color master and Pro Palette, all those old model of X-Rite software, they are still using the old Illuminant table, which is Illuminant 5. But if you are converting maybe to a data caller system or to any other software in the market, you have to switch to Illuminant Table 6. One thing you will notice when you do some data and seems to be you're still using the same spectral value, but the CIE LAB data is a little bit different, especially on the last two digit. It could be due to the Illuminant table. So normally just switching to another Illuminant table will fix the issue. So you will not see the problem, but as soon as the customer complain why I'm getting the different data when the spectral values is the same. So normally, if the spectral values is the same, the illumination is the same, then you should have the same LEB data. But if it's different, then try to change the illuminant table. I'm not going to change here because I have to restart the software again when I change to a different illuminant. SQL database is useful if you have a customer who have a very big data. So let's say the data is 1 GB. MDB file cannot handle those very big database. So you have to switch to another database platform. We call it the Microsoft SQL program. So this is where we set up all those Microsoft programs. Okay, and then later on also we have another way of what we call sometimes there are customers who are very particular, like I want to use this name only, I want a more automatic function in the software, they don't want to give the name of the standard. Then this is how you will this is where you can access and customize the naming convention that they want to use in the program. So sometimes they have a certain rules in terms of naming this the standard and the trial, and this is how you should this is the way you can access on setting all those parameters. So this today I will not do it this because this will take a lot of time, so we will skip that. Okay. One thing that is also one thing that you will notice in the software, and most of you will not have are not noticing it, is we have here what we call the user setting. So user setting is very useful because sometimes you need to have a better way of managing the software features and function. So calculation, I would not suggest you do some changes here unless there is a specific requirement from the customer, because there are some data that we need to change some of these values. But for now, do not do any changes on the calculation part under the user setting. But on the display, we can do a lot of things, okay? So first, you can change the language that is available in the software. So we always use English, or you can just leave it blank. But what is the most important here that will have some makes the software a lot easier to use is what we call the show text on toolbar buttons. So you can see here there is no descriptors yet on the toolbar. But if I change this into a true, so you see here as soon as you click on this features on this display, then you have the function here of arrow down, arrow selection. So we use the true, okay? And then when I click apply and then I click okay, so you see here, you have expanded this view. So this become easier for the customer, especially when you do a remote training. I have a better way of communicating to the customer. Can you measure the trial? They don't have to look at the icon. They just have to, they just um, read what does the icon represent when they click on, when you say display the text. So now you can display the text, and this is the much better way of doing what we call the showing some of the function in the software. So that is one way of doing the setting. And if you come here to the software, okay, so this setting have a lot of what we call controls on the workflow of the software. So I would suggest the what we call, if the customer have some specific requirement, okay, and there is and if you familiarize yourself with all this display setting, then you can come back to this user setting and check whether what the customer is asking maybe something that is being turned off, and then you want to activate it. Then you can go back to the user settings. So for example, if you're going to a grayscale in the textile application, so you can see here some function they want to use with decimal display, but some customer doesn't want. But you can change this in a true if you want to use this, if you want to activate. So everything here will have some kind of a descriptors. So make sure you read the descriptors below every time you change some function in the software. So let's say this one, filter bar. What is a filter bar? So this is filtering of the measurement that is in the view. So if you change this into true, you come here and then you go to new. So you can see here, again, you will have another way of filtering the data. So as soon as you change something on the user setting, then that affects how the software will use the data or show some of the function in the software. So the user setting is one way of customizing the display on the software. Okay. So far, okay? Still able to follow? Okay. All right. Okay. So another way to do a customization on the software also, which I think sometimes you will see, okay, what is single trial view? Is this relevant to me? This tag data search, is it useful to me? So one thing that we have added in the software, if you notice, if you position your mouse along this icon, there is a function called customize, where we can customize some of this icon and you can remove it, because sometimes your customer like it's not, I mean, you want to see less icons, so the software will appear like okay, this is the function that I need. I don't need other function. It's not relevant to me, or I want to add some function that I would like to access everything by the icon. So I'll show you one example. Let's say I don't like this tab because I don't know, there's no use for me for tab. So the customer does not need this single view. But I would like to add a new command. So let's say measure substrate, because you sometimes you have to measure a substrate. So I go to command, and then I there is a function in the software. When you go to data here, there is a measure substrate, and there is no measure substrate in this default icon, or we call it the toolbar. So if I move this, okay, and you see here, I can add what we call measure substrate in the toolbar, but there is no picture, so it doesn't look what aligned to the appearance. So in the appearance, just click here and you can see here there is a function called edit bottom image, and then you can choose. So you can choose, you can create your own, or if you have a file, you can import from a file. So I have here some file. I go to picture. I have some icon here. I want to use this image. Then I click open. So now I have the image. So actually you can even move here. You can move up and down, or you can come back here or move it that way. So you can really adjust, and then you can click here and then you can close. So you can see here that you have added another function in the software along with the toolbar. So as soon as you add something, you have edited the toolbar, then the software knows that you are not using the default toolbar. So the suggestion here is to create your own. So I would say this is for customer, a customer name customer. So I will have that name for the toolbar. Okay. So right now, so let's say you are happy with this kind of the icon arrangement. You can still add and you can still remove some. So it's up to you. So you can customize all the icons. So whatever information that you see here, you can actually access here, okay? And if you go to command, everything are here. So it's up to you whether you want to add this in the icon or not. Okay, so you can populate it, okay, as much as you can. Okay, so only when you do customize, so make sure it's relevant to the customer, make sure that it will help them use the software a lot in a very simple manner. So everything is here and you can just keep on using it. So you can even have increase the icon size, or you can show the screen the screen tips on what is the functionality of those icons. But since we have the text display, so this one is no longer is not relevant already. So I can close it. I will use the customer name toolbar, and then I'll just say, if I want to override, I will say yes because I want to save it again. So you can see here the toolbar has a little bit of changes because I have added the function called measure substrate. Now, I want to make sure that this toolbar will be saved. So every time I open the desktop for customer, this toolbar will be available. So you have to do to save it and make sure it stays there. So you have to close the eJob that you have here. Do not save it. Go to setting. And then you see there is a toolbar here. We call it a customer. You click apply and you click OK. So let's do the testing. Okay, I will run the program again. Since I'm using the customer as a desktop. So when I see the desktop, you can see here the measure substrate is available. Okay, the name disappear. Okay. All right. So so I think I did something wrong because the name disappeared. So let's do the customize again. I'll change this. Okay. Image and text. So you see here, I forget something which I did not update. Okay, override. It does. Wait, say image and text. I will remove here again. I will add a new command under data. measure substrate here. This is the name. It measures the edit image and text. Okay. I will change. Okay. Click. Okay. Close. And then I will save again. Okay. So 16. So that should be good. Okay. So if I close again, I want to make sure. So I go to the setting file. Sorry about that. So I will use this customer. So you can see here we have so many toolbar button, and you click OK, and you click New, and you should be able to see this function. Okay, so these are some of the useful settings that will help the program much more easier to use. So you can use the tool customize toolbar, and you can also do the what we call the user settings. Okay. So beside this user setting, one thing that I would like to bring to your attention, sometimes when you do this setting, there are several, you see here, there are several way, or what we call the default eJob setting, and the edit template setting, and the edit eJob setting. So when we say default eJob setting, normally when you click the new job, you will see this view, and you will see this what we call default view. So let's say you want to change something, and you want to see DE 2000. So every time you want to click on new job, you want to see DE star even of DE 2000. So how do you do that? You normally go to the what we call a setting, and you will change. So if you change like this, okay, and this one also has to change also. So how to change it? You go to properties, and then we have to make sure we change the D 2000 to D star. So this is the D star, and then we move this, and we can bring it up. Okay, you click apply. Okay, so when you do this, because this is DE star, it's no longer DE 2000, but sometimes even though you change it to DE star and then you click the new, you notice that it does not change. So it still remains that way. So how do you do that? So to do that is to fix the view into a D2000, meaning we have to change on the default eJob setting. So how do you do that? So you just close this one, cancel, close everything first. So the easiest way to close all the open job is just go to window and close all eJob. So I will close this, and then I go to what we call default eJob settings. Okay. And then I want to go to the properties again. I don't like the D2000 because my customer is using the DE stars. So when you do some changes, okay, so always remember that this is a DE calculator, and make sure the default setting on the QC, because of the fast fail, should be also DE star. Okay, so you need to make sure that the data on the QC setting is similar to the display that you have here. So once you have changed this one, so you want to change the default setting for every time you open a new eJob. So you come here and then you say save setting. So now I'm going to close again the window. So as soon as I open a new job, it should say DE star, no longer DE 2000. So every time you open a new job, then you will have that setting. So even changing the display, default display, so let's say I want this reflectance curve to be in this view. So you can do that also. So let's say this one, I want to change the view into a spectral graph, okay, or a spectral list. Okay, so you want this information. So remember, every time you open the new job, you will also see this. But you want to change it into another display. So again, if you want to customize it that way, so you can just close again, close all the window. And then you can edit default job setting. And then we change this view into a list. Okay, and then you just say save settings. So now we save the default. Remember, you look at this, there is a default industrial setting here. So we call it the industrial setting.st5. So once I have saved the setting, I just want to make sure I have saved the setting. And then you can close all this eJob. And then when you open, then you will see this view. So the customization on the software is really like you are a designer. You can design it, and the data, based on the customer requirements. So sometimes customer will ask you, can you do this? Can you do that? So the best way is really to explore the customer. If you can save it, the way to save it is to understand where does the default setting and how do you customize it. So that is one way of doing the customization of the functionality or features in the software. So you can add as many data or as many information that you have. Now, what is the difference, okay, between the new and the new template? Okay, so a new template is what we call it's like a customized information also. So there is a difference between a new and new template. If you want a default job setting in the new, you can do that. So let's say you are happy with this default e-job setting and you want this, but you want to add more customization. So you can do it by using a template. So for example, I have here this data, this information already, but I want to add some data with regards to measurements. So let's say, for example, okay, I want to add some data, we call it opacity, okay? So this is opacity for the paint. It's getting the contrast ratio. Opacity is not about the trial measurement that you have, so you have to pay attention. Okay, opacity can be taken for trial and standard. So if you have opacity for the trial, then you should have opacity for the standard also. So I will put opacity here, okay? And then you click OK, and you click go OK again. Then you see opacity measurement now. So you want this to be permanent. In some instances, not always, because not every day you will take opacity measurement. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. So it's not always a general default setting. So for once in a while you want to measure opacity, then you can create this as a template. So you come here and then save this as a template. So I will name this template as opacity. So you remember again, everything is saved on the customer desktop because we have created a desktop. So this will be saved under the desktop called customer, and I will name the template as opacity. So now what is the difference? So you will see here, if I click new, then this is what we call the general default setting. So every day, every minute, every hour, every second, you will always use this. And then opacity, once in a while, you have to use opacity. You have to take measurement. So it's a lot easier if you have a template. So when you click new from template, then you have now the opacity template. So now you see that we have a new job, okay, which is a general setting for every job. And then we have also a template called opacity. Now, so opacity is related to measurement. Okay. So when we say opacity, the software must measure the color over light and over dark background. So how do you do it? So if you notice in the software, we have what we call calibration mode. So we call it select mode. So it's always side by side. So we have the calibrate mode to calibrate the spectrum, and we have the select mode to set the spectrum into a different measurement task. So let's say we click the select mode. So at the moment, we are using what we call the zero default. So every time you install the software, you will have this zero default. When you have this zero default, you should know where to look at the status. So the status is always on the lower, you see, on the lower right-hand corner of the software. So the default here is what we call zero default. And when you modify this, you will see what we call the setup on the spectrum. So this is related to the setup, your spectrophotometer. So when you say default, is always based on the single data measurement. So let's do some measurements, so at least you can define the difference between the other mode that I'm going to set up. So let's do some measurement first. So we call it the single. Pay attention, this is a single mode. I'm using CI4200 as my device model. So you can see here, I have a CI42 and it only have one aperture, which is about 14 mm. And this is always UV included. Okay, now, if your instrument has a net profiler, okay, make sure you always enable the net profiler. Okay, my instrument is not net profile calibrated, but I would like you to show the function when you enable the net profiler. Remember, if the customer have a net profiler, make sure you always activate these features in the software. Otherwise, if you don't activate it, there will be the data will not be corrected. So we will do this way. So pay attention. I'm going to do some measurement under single mode, and I'm going to do what we call enable net profiler function. Okay. So I'm still calibrated for the next 30 minutes, okay? So just to do some measurement, I will take some measurement of the color. All right. So let's do some measurement here. So I would say this is standard. So you see here, when you have the net profiler, you should see this wording, data currently being corrected with net profiler. Okay, and then you click next. And you see, and then you can close. So you can see here that the net profiler symbol or icon should be there. So if this is off, then you cannot see the net profiler. It's red because my device doesn't is not profiled yet. So if you see red, then the net profiler is what we call is an old profile. So you have to calibrate and do a net profiler again for this instrument. So at the moment, I don't have the net profiler tiles, but just to show you what can you expect when you activate the net profiler in the calibration mode. Okay, so that's what will happen. So what will happen if I turn it off? Okay, so I come here and then I will turn it off. Okay, and then I'll take the measurement of the trial. So I will say trial here. So you see here, the data is no longer calibrated. So if you are not very careful and the customer is not paying attention, then potentially the data might be wrong. Okay, might not be aligned if the customer has a net profiler data. So if they turn it off, the good thing it also show you. So if I click measure, okay, I measure the color again. And you see here, there is quite significant difference. I'm using the same measurement. I did not move the sample. There is already a significant difference between a profile and unprofiled data, depending on the status of your instrument. And you see here, there is no symbol of net profiler. So if the customer has a net profiler, so make sure you activate the net profiler. Otherwise, you might get confused on the measurement. So I will click here. I will do some modify. I will again try to do some measurement. Okay, so I will use trial 2. And I will do the measurement. So you can see here, when I use the net profiler, because the data is pointing to the same standard, then I will have a good measurement. So you see, this I would say this is a correct measurement because both data have the net profiler activated. So net profiler activation, if the customer is using a net profiler, make sure you activate that in their software application. Okay. Now, what do you notice in the data? I did measure the net profile, measure the sample, but then there is no opacity measurement here. It says not applicable. Okay, what's the point? Okay, so there is no opacity because we did not measure the sample with using the opacity mode of calibration. So to make this relevant, what you should do, okay, you should go to the select mode because this is related to the measurement. You go to the select mode, then you click add new, okay? And then there is additional data mode called overlight and overdark. So overlight and overdark is about opacity. So we name this as opacity, and then you click OK, and you will have here additional information called opacity. And when you see expired, then this will be expired. Then you have to calibrate the spectrophotometer. So let's do some calibration so we can do some opacity measurement. Okay, I will calibrate the instrument. Okay, calibrate. So just follow the calibration. And then over black. Okay, then the calibration opacity is already completed. Okay, and then you pay attention on this, on the right hand corner, you see also the opacity measurement in this application. So now the opacity measurement is still not here, even though I have activated the opacity. So still no data. Yes, because we have not done any opacity measurement. So again, I will do again this new from template, and I go to opacity. Then I have to make sure that the calibration mode is also on the opacity mode. So if I want to measure a sample and I want to take the opacity, all I have to do is just follow the instructions. So I'm going to measure a yellow color here. So you click next. So it says here measure color over the light background. So you just click OK, and then it will take the measurement. So say next again. So now asking you to measure over the black background. So you move your sample over the black background, and then you take the measurement, and then you see now what we call the opacity measurement is already here because it's relevant to the measurement. So if I want to measure the trial, so we move to the trial again. So again, you see there is no icon here for the net profiler is not active. So later on, I can activate that. And then we measure again as trial. Okay, so I will measure the trial. So under the light background again. And then you measure under the black background. So you follow the instruction over the black background, and then you should have here the opacity measurement. Okay, so the color that I'm using are different color of yellow, and it shows me a different opacity measurement. So sometimes the customer might forget, and they are not paying attention, or they forgot that they have to switch to opacity mode. So how do you make how do you sure that every time you click the template to opacity, it will switch to opacity mode? Every time you don't want to measure opacity, then it goes to what we call a default mode. So how can you configure the software to do an automatic switching? Okay, so there is a function in the software that you can actually tell the software to do an automatic switching. So let me close all the job here first. I will not say the job. Okay, and this is to give a customer a more automated functionality. So in the software, we have what we call user setting. And then in the user setting, there is what we call automatic setting to a what we call calibration mode. So let me come here. Okay, so there is another group of setting here. We call it the general workflow. Okay, and you see there is an enable our automatic calibration switching, and at the moment it is set to false. And it says here this will be specified in the job setting. So you need to also to set the job setting in the automatic mode. So how do you do that? So if I click this through, okay, I apply. So normally what I would do, I will go to the e-default setting, and then you go to setting. And if you notice, there is a job, what we call general. there is a default setting here called none. So I want the software that every time to make that switch mode automatic, every time we open a new job, it will look at this default setting. So you click OK, and then you click apply, and then you click OK, and then again, you have to save the settings. Okay, so I have set the settings. So when I click here, then you will see that this will enable later on. So for the new job, let me check again. So I go to the general. So, okay, it does not save. Let me check. Okay, save settings. So sometimes you really have to test, okay, whether it's working or not, okay. Okay, this one I cannot see. All right, okay. So I go to the settings. All right, so general, okay, default, apply, click OK, and then save settings. Okay, so I will close the job, and then when I open it, okay, so I have to make sure that this is now. All right, so you see here, it's set already to the default. Okay, now for the template, I want to edit the template. So I'm going to, when you edit the template, you just click new from template. I will check opacity. And then for me to operate, to automate the process, so you can come to setting again, and then you can go to the general. And since this is opacity, I want to make sure that the software is using also the opacity functionality. So I click OK, and then you click OK here, and then you say the template again. Okay, so I will use the same name. So I will overwrite it, I will replace it, and now it's become automated. So how does it work? Okay, so if you notice right now, the default setting is the default. Okay, if I want to switch to opacity template, I want to use the opacity template, and I did not change it. So the software should recall that calibration mode. So when you click OK, and then you will see that the software has switched to opacity. See? So I did not go to calibrate mode, but the software do it. Now, if I want to go back to the new job, and the new job is using a default setting. So you go here, okay? And then this one, you see, it gives you a warning now, switching to calibrate mode specified in the job setting. So I click OK, and then you will notice here, it's switched now to what we call a default mode. So you can see here, even on the calibration mode, if you set up properly, then the software has an ability to automate the process. So that will be very easy for the customer. So the customer, as soon the customer does not have to remember, if I want to do the measurement, I have to come here, then I have to select this one. So if there are so many modes, then that will be very difficult to remember for the end user. If you are a manager, then I'm sure it's easy for them to understand the process. But if you have an operator where they just measure and they just say, oh, you measure opacity, then it becomes a lot easier for them to manage the software. Okay, so again, if I close all this window, again, to test the switching calibration mode that I just set up to the software. Okay, so if I want to measure opacity, then it should call the calibration mode as opacity. Then it will give me a warning. And then you can see here now the opacity measure has been switched to opacity mode. If I don't want to measure opacity, I just click open U, and then right now it's switched again to another mode, which should be what we call a default mode for the software. Okay, so this is one way on how to do automation process when regards to the different calibration mode in the software. Okay, before I proceed, we still have 15 minutes more. Is there any question with regards to the setting or any ideas that your customer is asking? So maybe we can try and probably see if the software is capable of making a default setting based on your customer requirement. Okay, you can unmute yourself, okay, if you want to ask question, or you can write on the chat box in case you have a question. So any questions so far? Okay. All right. Okay. So no question with regards to setting. Okay. So I hope you find it easy. Okay.
Irene, this is Patsy.
Yes.
Okay, can you
Patsy, go
share
ahead.
where those like the sensor archive files, the setting files, the toolbar files, where they kept, because after they do the setup, they had to make a backup in case when they transfer the system to a new PC system. So instead of repeat all the things, actually they just need to copy all those like the settings files, the template, the toolbar files, as well as the X-ray, the sensor files.
A very good question, Patsy. Okay. Um, Remember, okay, one thing that you have to remember, when you do the installation, there are two folders that is created by the color iControl program. Okay, so the way to do this backup, so let me close the software first. Okay, so let's close the, let's exit the software. Okay, so when you do the installation, there are two folders that is being created by the program. So let's go to the Explorer, okay? And in the Explorer, okay, we go to what we call the C drive. So let's go to the C drive, which we call it the main drive. So in the C drive, there is what we call color iControl folder, okay? This is the default folder where the software created and where all the data, those settings that we did are saved. So if you click here, so you can see here this customer file that created, and there is a system and shared file. Normally, what I would tell the customer, okay, is to first, you can save the whole folder, okay? And then copy later. Or if you really want to be more precise, you go to Color iControl. You see this folder customer, which we created a while ago. You save this folder. Another is to save also what we call the system, okay? In the system setting, these are all what we call those file that we created, like the desktop. You see your customer INN file. You have all those default settings that we kept editing a while ago. Then I would say you also save this folder also. Another folder that you have to save is also what we call the system share. So if you go to the system shared, you can see what we call the instrument, what we call setup. So we have here this is related to this how do you call this dispenser. So it's still in the system. So you go to the system, and in the system you will also see what we call the instrument archive. So this is the setting for the instrument. We called it the X-Rite sensor to archive. So to back up, this is the most important system and system setting. And then if you create your own desktop folder, you save also the desktop folder. Okay, so there is no what we call in the software, there is no program like backup restore. Okay, it's like your normal window explorer. You all have to do is just save this folder, make sure you update, because every time you have a new data, then it will always keep adding the data in this folder. So these are the three most important folder for you. If you want to be more easier, okay, just copy this folder. So you go here, copy the folder, and save it into another hard disk depending on the size. So since this is a small one, so you can just say paste, it's saved on the same folder, but it will be saved as a copy. Then make sure you do it on a regular basis. Okay? Thank you, Patsy, for that question. That is a very good question, because sometimes when you move to a new computer, when you do the backup, the customer are not really paying attention to the setting, then they got confused. So the software looks different. So the best way is really to have a regular backup of the system shared, and the desktop that you have created for your customer, or just copy the entire file, and then you make sure you copy the content to the new computer. All right, okay. Any more question with regards to the settings? Okay. All right, so we still have 8 more minutes. Okay, so what I can show you more with regards to the customer setting here. Okay, I'm not sure if you are aware of Pantone Live, how to set up the Pantone Live, because we have Pantone Live also, and sometimes your customer may have a Pantone Live data. So how to set it up is, again, you go to the setting under user setting. And then in the user setting, if you go to the general workflow, there is what we call the Pantone Live. Okay. Sometimes the Pantone Live, depending on your internet connection, it will take sometimes for the software to connect. So there is a function in the software called offline cache, okay, or online. So if you have a customer that is they just set up the Pantone Live, first you have to go to online, and then you have to put in your Pantone Live user ID. Make sure you put the slash, because this is how you set up your password. It's okay for you to see my password. So that is how you set up your Pantone Live, and you click OK. So when you go to new, all right, and then you see there is a window, tools called Pantone Live. And these are all the data that you have. So I will connect to the Pantone Live online now, because when I connected, I was offline. So these are all the Pantone Live data that you have. So I just choose a few. So I choose a few, like this is when you choose Pantone Live, make sure you choose the right Pantone, because the Pantone are mostly 450 or using exact. We have Pantone for textile also using a spear. So we have the polyester for Pantone color library right now. So I will choose only that is a spear because I'm using a spear device. So you can see here, I have selected a Pantone color guide that is based on solid and spear device that is based on the plastic. Let me check if I can do the cotton. Okay, so let's say use this Pantone cotton. I will move it here. Uh, I was not able to add here, so let me connect again. All right, so let me check the Pantone cotton. Okay, and then I will copy. So I will copy it. So this will be now in my software. Then I will click OK, and let's check. So the easiest way to check is to come here, and then you see here that you have already added all the Pantone library. So what I'm going to do, I'm sorry, I did not select. So I will go to Pantone, and I will say work offline because that will make the connection a lot faster. So if you click here and then you see the Pantone cotton, let's say we are in textile, and then you want to select the files. So you see these are all the files that is available. There are 2,625 colors here. And then you just select which one do you want. You can say retrieve, and then you now have the Pantone color line. So this is the Pantone color that we can use in the color iMatch or color IQC program. Okay, I see some question here. It says here, in Pro Palette option, this is available. So what that option? Full
He would like to show
description
the
of red, more red, less red. Full description. Yes, you can. Okay, so how do you do it? All right, if you want a full descriptor, right click. Okay, and there is here what we call full descriptors. You add here, and then I say full descriptors. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay, so I will now do a measurement comparison, okay, just to show you the full descriptor. Okay, the D may be big, but just to show you the full descriptors, you click close. You see here, so now what happened? It's not being associated. So what do you do here? So to be associated here, first, you have to select your standard. And then because one is using the Pantone, so the software is quite clever. So you see here, associate, and then you see here, it doesn't say more, it just say redder because it's a descriptor. Yeah, it's not saying more red, so it says darker, redder, yellower, brighter, and all redder in terms of hue. So that is how you use the descriptor in the software. So right click if you want an abbreviated descriptors, you can do it also. Now, if you want a descriptor to be a permanent setting in the software, then you can come here again. So we close all the job. And then you can edit the default setting. So every time you use the measurement, you do the measurement, the descriptor is already activated. So see here, I will use the full descriptors. Okay, so this is the setting that I would like to make sure that it's there, right? And then I will save the settings. So let's do the testing. So say new. Okay, so let's do some measurement. Okay, so I'll just use simple one. Okay, so let's move the sample so we can have another setting. So software is asking now for the calibration. So let me calibrate it first. White. Okay, so you can see the software is intelligent, asking me for the, so let's say 2. So measure. So you see now, you can see that every time you, because we changed the setting, the default setting, so every time you have want a full descriptor, the full descriptor by default is being added to the setting. Okay. Is there any question here? Let me check. The customer is asking for more redder application. So it's already read there. Okay. So, okay. I think it's how we use the English term because redder is already the more. Okay. More redder, I think that is a double.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah,
Double
ma'am. Senthil.
description.
Senthil.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yes.
actually, in propellate software, that option is there: more redder, more bluer, more darker, or less redder. So now the customer is upgrade propellate to iMatch. So now he's asking the same option in the iMatch version 10.
I see. I know your point, but I think okay. I think when do you say redder? Mean it's more red. Okay, this more redder is additional. It's a double descriptor. I understand your point. Okay, but I think probably we have to ask. It could be more red. Let me check. Okay, so let me check if we have the setting because I remember we have some setting in the software. Just let me do something. Okay.
Irene, you go to the
Yes.
users, you go to the
Yeah.
display
This one.
and enable the DCI
Correct. This one. But this is
description. Yes.
flat. Yep. Wait. This is flat, but this is flat descriptor. I will try to true. Yeah, that's the only one, right, Patsy?
I remember there's some way we can set it up. Let me find it out because we do have this request before, and then we can add it on to make it to look like data color one. Something like more red, more green, like that.
Yeah, but it cannot be more. Okay, let me check again. Let's do
And
some
we need
measurement.
something under the ini file. Let us check it out. Then we come back to you, Ken.
Yep.
And then, okay, I just want to share one more thing. Okay, regarding on the Pantone Live, actually the Pantone Live version 4 is it's available for anyone, even they don't have Pantone Live license.
Yeah. For exact. Yep. If they don't use for Pantone Live, if no license, you can go to setting. Wait, it's on the workflow, Pantone Live. Sometimes if you go too fast, here, all right, okay. Do you remember, Patsy, CQC? Yeah, there is a free Pantone Live. There is a username and password name. I'll share it to you. I forgot the default name, but there will be there is a free Pantone Live for version 4 on the
I just
software.
in the username and the password under the checkbox.
Huh?
I just put the username and the password for free.
Okay.
Right?
On the chat
I'm
box. Okay, yeah, wait. I cannot access the chat box. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is the password name. Happy. I go to setting. I go to user setting. Let's go here to the Pantone here. Okay. All right. So that is the name. Apply. Okay. And then when you go to new, let's test. We go to the Pantone. Okay, so we go online. So when you go online, you should have a lesser number. Okay, so these are the default Pantone colors, which is free. Okay, so this is all the free that is available. So you copy to your local drive, to your local cache. So for those who want to get the Pantone color, as a default, as a free one, you can have it, okay? And then you can switch to offline. So because we have already moved that to the palette, so if you want to check, so you see here, so now you have all the Pantone color library, okay? And then it will show you the different Pantone colors that you have. Okay, I got more question here. Thank you, Patsy, for sharing that. Can customers save setting job in a publicly shared network? Yeah, I think you can. Yes, you can. It depends on the IT. If the IT wants to use, because, okay, if they want to save it, remember when we do the desktop, okay, you see there is a folder here. And depending on the customer, so if they want to use another what we call in the network, they go to another network. Okay, as long as the IT allows them to access, then you can, because it's all about mapping. So if you map the folder correctly, the only thing that you should not or pay more attention is on the shared, is on the system. Okay, shared you can still map to another, but the system you cannot change. It will stay there. So the important thing, if the IT person allows it, then this is the way you can do it. So you go to the system setting under the desktop, then you can do it. Okay, so let's check the chat box. Okay, can you show the setting for the pre-Phantom Live for version 4? Okay, I'm going to repeat again. Okay, let me close this. I click OK. Oh, what did I do? I cannot close my program now. So there is something behind that is let me, can I, huh?
It is. You click on the data path, something else.
Right, okay. I think wait, so I will change this again to customer systems. System shared is the same. Okay, so I click OK.
Yeah, is this something is still open?
Yeah, okay. So I think something is behind. So let me force it, because I think I cannot go behind. Otherwise, I need to. Let me force, otherwise it will take time for me. All right, I will force to close the software right now. So where's Color IQC? Okay, I match. So that's the easiest way, is to end task. Okay, so I will show again on how to set up the let me check if there is no anything open. Okay. Okay, you click yes. So I want to run the color IQC for the free Pantone Live. Okay, the quickest way is to, okay, so my Pantone Live is really alive. So sometimes it takes some time. So go to without, go to user setting. And then under the user setting, there is what we call the packaging, Pantone Live color search scorecard. And then you see here, Pantone Live user called user ID. The Patsy gave you the user ID and the password. So make sure when you write the password, you put the slash here. Okay. And that is the password. And then once you do the setup already, I would suggest to change it to an offline, because sometimes if the internet is not working, the software will take a long time to launch because it's looking for the data. So better switch to offline cache. So it's a lot faster when you want to open. So the password here is IQC Live. Okay. And then since I already connected earlier, then I'll just offline catch, apply, and then you click OK. So now when you open, you know, this is the easiest way. You use the search magnifying glass here, Pantone Live is here, and then you can see now the version 4 is already here. And then you can now see the data that is related to version 4. Okay, there. Okay. Setting publicly rather option. Okay, the rather option, I think we have, okay, but we need to do, but it's not in the software right now. It's another way of setting. So let me check. Any more question? For descriptors, okay. Okay, I didn't see any more question on the chat box. All right, so we are over.
Sorry,
Yes.
last quick question. Edwin here.
Yeah, Edwin, yes.
Yep. Pantone Live data, is it only applicable in iControl? Can it be export and used in, say,
All right, okay.
the other software platform? Yep.
Yeah, we cannot export the Pantone Live data. It's only within our software.
Oh, I should put in this way, all the Pantone Live library was being encrypted. So even you try to export, they will only give you zero spectral data. You only can get the name, get the measurement information, measurement condition, all those, but you won't get the spectral data. So this is how we protect the Pantone Live license.
I understand.
Yes.
What I mean is the other software platform called Nucleus that actually used together with the MA series. The multi-angle.
Okay. Okay,
Yep.
the software that is compliant to Pantone Live, that is using our Pantone Live, are Color IQC Print, Color iMatch, Color IQC, Color Cert, Informulation software. These are the only compliant, and the Exact Manager. So another software is not compatible or does not have the access to the Pantone Live.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
This answers the question.
Sort of. Yeah, I could do with that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Normally, Edwin, what do they do? Because the Pantone Live is really using our instrument, it's using our software. So what most of the customer, that what they do, if they got the data, they just copy the LAB value, and they have to do the manually input if they want to use it in another software. So they just get the LAB value because we provide spectral values, and then the software will convert it into the LAB value. So let's say, for example, if I want to get data, okay, because even though I export this data, so you see most of the customer, because they cannot export this file, because you see the spectral value you can see here, it doesn't even show. So
Okay.
the
Yeah.
customer will only able to copy, so they have to copy it manually if they want to use it with another software.
Okay. Fair
Okay.
enough.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Because that is a patented technology by Xrite as of this time.
Yeah, I think you understand the point where I came from for, on this question.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
that's why you can see here. So the spectral data doesn't even show.
Sure.
Okay, any more question before we close the session today? So for Santi, I will get back to you. Santi, we'll get back to you on your question about the more redder, more bluer. Okay, I'm checking if we have some more question here. All right. Okay, so I hope you find this session today very useful in doing some customization. So actually there are a lot more, but it will take the whole day, but I'm showing you the most popular customization. What I would encourage you is you go to the user setting. If you know in the user setting, the way to understand some of the function, also there is in the help also there will be this help sometimes is overlooked, but actually you can get a lot of information in here, but you have to spend a little bit more time. So that's what helps you to understand some of the basic function in the software. And always remember, every time you go to the user setting, you please try to read what does this what this function is used for, because this is how you will have more understanding on customization of the plastic on the software application. So there's a lot here. I cannot share to you because some may not be relevant for some user. I just show you the most relevant part of the software that most customer are looking for. If they have a special request, try to look at here. If it's not here, then let us know, so at least we can add something, some new functionality in the software. All right. Okay, so we will end the session for today. On the next week, that is August 24, Patsy will do a more, actually it's a very useful tool. We call it the remote data output. It's also one way of customizing those data that you would like, that the customer would like to share to their customer also. So tomorrow, on Tuesday, we have a second part of the training program. So for those who have joined us today, thank you very much. I will close the session today. I will share the recorded session. If not, remind me so I can share it to you, or I will put it in the what we call in our OneDrives, and so you can access the OneDrive and download or some of the presentation that we did today. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for your participation. Bye for now.
Everybody.